Men talk just as much as women. Can it really be true? Research by psychologists at the University of Arizona has shown that the stereotype that women talk more than men may not be true. In the study, hundreds of college students were fitted with recorders, and the total number of words they used during the day was then counted. The results, published in the New Scientist, showed that women speak about 16,000 words a day and men speak only slightly fewer. In fact, the foremost talkative people in the study were all men. Professor Matthias Mell, who was in charge of the research, said that he and his colleagues had expected to find that women were more talkative. However, they had been skeptical of the common belief that women use 3 times as many words as men. This idea became popular after the publication of a book called The Female Brain 2006, whose author, Landry Zendini, claimed that a woman uses about 20,000 words per day, whereas a man uses about 7,000. Professor Mell accepts that many people will find the results difficult to believe. However, he thinks that this research is important because the stereotype that women talk too much and men keep quiet is bad not only for women but also for men. It says that to be a good male, it's better not to talk, that silence is golden. Gossip with the girls. Just pick any one of 40 subjects. Women are experts at gossiping and they often talk about trivial things, or at least that's what men have always thought. However, according to research done by Professor Peter Boynton, a psychologist at University College London, when women talk to women, their conversations are not trivial at all and cover many more topics, up to 40, than when men talk to other men. Women's conversations range from health to their houses, from politics to fashion, from movies to family, from education to relationship problems. Almost everything, in fact, except soccer. Men tend to talk about fewer subjects, the most popular being work, sports, jokes, cars, and women. Professor Boynton interviewed over 1,000 women for her study. She also found that women move quickly from one subject to another in conversation, whereas men usually stick to one subject for longer periods of time. Professor Boynton also says that men and women talk for different reasons. In social situations, women use conversation to solve problems and reduce stress, while men talk to each other to laugh or to exchange opinions. Commando Dad. When he left the army, Sinclair and his wife agreed that he would stay at home and take care of the baby, while his wife went back to work. I have done a lot of crazy things, but when I put that baby down, I thought, I have a tiny baby, and he is crying. What does he want? What does he need? I did not know. It was one of the most difficult days of my life. It was at that moment that Sinclair had an idea. I found myself thinking how much easier life would be if I had a basic training manual for my baby, like the manual you get when you join the army. I realized that somebody needed to write such a manual, and who better to write it than me? I had been a commando, but I was now a stay-at-home dad. I was the man for the job. His book, Commando Dad. Basic training, is a set of instructions that explains with military precision and diagrams how new fathers should approach the first 3 years of their child's life to become a first-rate father. Glossary. Commando, noun, one of a group of soldiers who are trained to make quick attacks in enemy areas. Stay-at-home dad, noun, a man who stays at home and takes care of the children while his wife goes to work.
I've never been able to scuba dive. I really wanted to learn. Maybe it was because of that scene in one of the very first James Bond movies where a beautiful actress comes out of the ocean looking fabulous with oxygen tanks on her back. I could see myself looking just like her. So 2 years ago I booked a vacation that included a week-long intensive course. On the first day of the course, I was incredibly excited. First, we had 2 hours of theory, and then we went into the ocean to put it into practice. But as soon as I went under the water, I discovered that I suffered from claustrophobia. Won't do it. After about half an hour, I gave up. Every evening for the rest of my vacation, I had to listen to my scuba diving classmates talking about all the wonderful things they had seen that day on their diving excursions. To join in the conversation was very frustrating. I still love swimming and snorkeling, but I think that I have to accept that 3 scuba dive. Learned to exercise. When I was working in Ecuador, there were free classes, so I joined. After about 10 hours of classes, do the basic steps, but I was exercising like a robot. I didn't give up, but soon everyone in the class was exercising, and I was just slowly moving from side to side and counting out loud 1, 2, 3, 4. It was a little embarrassing. I was sure that one day 5 do it, but that never happened. I can still remember the first 2 steps, and I still try to exercise when I hear a music as long as nobody is watching. Speak Japanese. I love manga Japanese comics and I tried to learn Japanese, but I found it incredibly difficult, and I gave up after 2 years. I think Asian languages, which have symbols instead of words, are extremely hard to learn for people who are more used to Roman letters. Also, my teacher, a Japanese woman, didn't speak Spanish very well, which didn't help. She was a very charming woman, but she was a little disappointed with us, and you could see that she thought that 7 learn. However, one day she invited us to dinner and gave us some delicious traditional Japanese food, and since then I often go to Japanese restaurants. So I learned to love the food, if not to speak the language. New article.
He's only 20, but he can speak 11 languages. In a competition run by a dictionary publisher, college student Alex Rawlings was named the most multilingual student. The German and Russian student, who is only 20 years old, can speak 11 languages fluently. In a video for a news website, he demonstrated his skills by speaking in all of them, changing quickly from one to another. Rawlings said that winning the competition was a bit of a shock. He explained, "I saw the competition advertised, and I heard something about a free iPad. I never imagined that it would generate this amount of media attention." As a child, Rawlings' mother, who is half Greek, used to speak to him in English, Greek, and French, and he often visited his family in Greece. He said that he has always been interested in languages. "My dad worked in Japan for 4 years, and I was always frustrated that I couldn't speak to the kids because of the language barrier. After visiting Holland at the age of 14, he decided to learn Dutch with CDs and books. When I went back, I could talk to people. It was great." He taught himself many of the languages with Teach Yourself books, but also by watching movies, listening to music, and traveling to the countries themselves. Of all the languages he speaks, Rawlings says that Russian, which he has been learning for a year and a half, is the hardest. He said, "There seem to be more exceptions than rules." He added, "I especially like Greek because I think it's beautiful, and because of my mother, I have a strong personal link to the country and to the language." Everyone should learn languages, especially if they travel abroad. If you make the effort to learn even the most basic phrases wherever you go, it instantly shows the person you're speaking to that you respect his or her culture. Going around speaking English loudly and getting frustrated with people is tactless and rude. The next language Rawlings hopes to learn is Arabic, but only once I've finished my degree and got some more time on my hands. For now, I need to concentrate on my German and Russian, so I can prepare for my finals. New article. Debret Sewellon published has been producing guides on how people should behave since the 1900s, including Debret's etiquette and modern manners and the English gentleman. Nowadays, it still offers advice on what and what not to do in social situations. 1. Think what your ringtone says about you. If you're sometimes embarrassed by your ringtone, it's almost certainly the wrong one and you should change it. 2. When in doubt, use silent or vibrate mode. It may surprise your companions when you suddenly answer an invisible, silent phone, but at least they won't have to listen to your ringtone. 3. Take notice of who's around you. Make sure your conversation is not disturbing other people. Intimate conversations are never appropriate in front of others. For respect quiet zones, you must not use your phone in quiet zones on trains or in hotels. That is the reason why they exist. 5. Never shout. Your phone is not a megaphone. You don't have to shout. And don't shout because you think reception is poor. It won't make any difference. 6. People with you deserve more attention than those at the end of the phone. Wherever possible, turn off your phone in social situations and at meal times, or put it on vibrate. If you have to keep your phone on because you are expecting an important call, apologize in advance. 7. Don't continue on with phone conversations when you are in the middle of something else. This is especially true if you are in banks, stores, etc. It is insulting not to give the people who are serving you your full attention. 8. Think about where you are calling from. Don't make or receive calls in inappropriate places. Put your phone on vibrate in meetings, movies, etc. If you must take a call in the car, use a hands-free.
New article News Online. Two sides to every story by News Online reporter. Everyone knows it can be difficult to get along with your in-laws, but for 29-year-old Heidi Withers, it may now be impossible. Heidi was invited to spend the weekend with her fiancé Freddie's family at their house. But soon after they returned home, Heidi received a very nasty email from Carolyn Bourne, Freddie's stepmother, criticizing her manners. Here are a few examples of your lack of manners. When you are a guest in another person's house, you should not declare what you will and will not eat unless you are allergic to something. You should not say that you do not have enough food. You should not start before everyone else. You should not take extra helpings without being invited to by your host. You should not lie in bed until late morning. You should have sent a handwritten note after the visit. You have never written to thank me when you have stayed. Heidi was shocked and immediately sent the email on to some of her close friends. Surprised and amused, the friends forwarded it to other people, and soon the email had been posted on several websites, with thousands of people writing comments about the mother-in-law. New article Good manners, bad manners. When you are invited to somebody's house, criticize the food, e.g., if it is too cold, salty, etc. Take a present or write an email to say thank you or arrive more than 10 minutes late for lunch or dinner when you are having a meal with friends in a restaurant. Leave your cell phone on silent on the table in front of you. Answer or send a text or message. Make a phone call on social networking sites. Post a private message or conversation on an internet site. Post an embarrassing photo or video clip of a friend without asking his or her permission. Post all the details of your breakup with a partner when greeting people. Use more formal language when speaking to an older person. Bow to a woman when you meet her for the first time. Use your partner's parents' first names, men and women. A man's role. Pay for the meal on a first meeting. Wait for a woman to go through the door first. Accompany a woman home.
New article Turn it off. Something historic happened at the New York Philharmonic on the evening of January 10, 2012, about an hour into Mahler's Ninth Symphony. During the beautiful fourth movement, an audience member's cell phone loudly rang. And rang. And rang again. It was the kind of marimba riff we've all heard on the street from a stranger's phone. From my seat in row L, I could see the horrified discomfort of the other audience members from their body language. We all wondered whether the conductor, Alan Gilbert, would react, and how. Suddenly there was silence. The orchestra had stopped playing. Mr. Gilbert had halted the performance. He turned to the man, who was seated in the front row, and said, "Are you going to turn it off? Will you do that?" There was some discussion between the conductor and the cell phone owner, but we couldn't hear it. In the Avery Fisher Hall, many members of the audience stood and demanded that the men leave the hall. They were so furious that I could have imagined them dragging him from his seat onto the stage, tying him to a stake, and setting him alight. When the power off button on the man's phone had finally been located and put to use, Mr. Gilbert turned to the audience. "Usually, when there's a disturbance like this, it's best to ignore it," he said. But this time I could not allow it. The audience applauded as if Mahler himself, the orchestra's conductor from 1909 to 1911, had suddenly been resurrected on stage. Mr. Gilbert neither smiled nor acknowledged the cheers. Instead, he turned to the orchestra, instructing the players to resume several bars back from the point at which he had stopped the performance. Just before, he raised his baton and turned again to the audience and said, this time with a smile, "We'll start again." A few seconds later, the fourth movement resumed. Mr. Gilbert's brave decision that night brought new music to the Philharmonic. New article If I Bounce the Ball 5 times. Matthew Side writes about sporting superstitions. 1. Tennis players are strange people. Have you noticed how they always ask for 3 balls instead of 2? How they too bounce the ball the same number of times before serving, as if any change from their routine might result in disaster. The number 1 female tennis player. When she was once asked why she had played so badly at the French Open, she answered, "I didn't tie my shoelaces right, and I didn't bounce a ball 5 times, and I didn't bring my shower sandals to the court with me. I didn't have my extra dress. I just knew it was fate, it wasn't going to happen." 3. Goran Lvanisevich. Wimbledon champion in 2001, was convinced that if he won a match, he had to repeat everything he did the previous day, such as eating the same food at the same restaurant, talking to the same people, and watching the same TV shows. 1 year this meant that he had to watch Teletubbies every morning during his Wimbledon campaign. Sometimes it got very boring, he said.
For as we were watching tennis player Andy Murray play the fourth set at Wimbledon, my wife suddenly got up and went to the kitchen. He keeps losing games when I am in the room, she said. If I go out now, he'll win. 5 ___________________ Last year, a survey of British soccer supporters found that 21% had a Lucky Charm, anything from a scarf to a lucky coin, while another questionnaire revealed that 70% of Spanish soccer fans performed pre-match rituals wearing lucky clothes, eating same food or drink, or watching games with the same people. She returned, and he won the fifth. I laughed at her, and then remembered my soccer team, Spurs, who were losing 1-0 in the Carling Cup. If I leave the room now, Spurs will score. I told my kids, after 27 minutes of overtime. I left the room and they scored twice. Glossary: Teletubbies, a television series for very young children. Spurs: Tottenham Hotspur, a London soccer team. New article: famous cheating moments in sports. Although it isn't true that everybody in sports cheats, it is certainly true that there are cheaters in every sport. On April 21, 1980, 23-year-old Rosie Ruiz was the first woman to cross the finish line at the Boston Marathon. She finished the race in the third fastest time for a female runner, 2 hours, 31 minutes, 56 seconds. But when the organizers congratulated Rosie after the race, they were surprised because she wasn't sweating very much. Some spectators who were watching the race told them what had really happened. During the last half mile, Rosie suddenly jumped out of the crowd and sprinted to the finish line. The marathon organizers took Ruiz's title away and awarded it to the real winner, Jacqueline Gouraud. It was later discovered that 3 months earlier, Rosie had also cheated in the New York City Marathon, where she had taken the subway. New article: Love at Exit 19. He was a toll booth collector, and she was a soprano who sang in Carnegie Hall. Their eyes met at Exit 19 of the New York State Thruway when he charged her $37. The romance that followed was even less likely than the plot of an opera. Sonia Baker was a frequent commuter from her home in the suburbs to New York City. One day, when she was driving to an audition, she came off the thruway and stopped at the toll booth where Michael Fazio was working. She talked with him as she paid to go through, and thought he was cute. For the next 3 months, they used to exchange a few words as she handed him the money, and he raised the barrier to let her pass. It was mostly "What are you doing today? Where are you going?" she said. They learned more about each other, for example that Sonia loved Puccini and Verdi, while Michael's love was the New York Yankees. But their conversations suddenly came to an end when Michael changed his working hours. He used to work during the day, said Sonia, but he changed to night shifts. Although Michael still looked out for Sonia's white Toyota Corolla, he did not see her again for 6 months.
When Michael's working hours changed back to the day shift, he decided to put a traffic cone in front of his lane. He thought it will be like putting a candle in a window. Sonia saw it, and their romance started up again. "I almost crashed my car on various occasions," she said, trying to cross several lanes to get to his exit. Finally, Michael called her, and for their first meeting they went to see the movie Cool Runnings, and then later they went to an opera, La Boheme, and to a Yankees game. They are now married and living in Kentucky, where Sonia is a voice and music professor at Murray State College and Michael runs an activity center at a nursing home. It turned out that she had given him her number just in time. A short while later, she moved to New Jersey and stopped using the New York State Thruway. "I might never have seen him again," she said. Glossary: a toll booth, a small building by the side of the road where you pay money to use the road. Carnegie Hall, a famous concert hall in New York. New York State Thruway Road. New York Yankees, a baseball team based in the Bronx in New York City. A traffic cone, a plastic object, often orange and white, used to show where vehicles can or can't go.